right, there we go. Hello. Thanks for joining for this session about productivity workflows or boosting your productivity. I've prepared a couple of asset building, modeling workflows, and tools to show to you. I realized that online there's no detailed description about this talk, so just to make you all aware, this is going to focus on the Autodesk tool of 3ds Max. Some of those tools or tool sets are available in Maya as well. But yeah, just to give you that upfront. So I hope that's going to be fine for you. My name is Alex Horst. I've been with Autodesk for a while now. I'm based out of Germany. I'm a product specialist for 3ds Max, so I've been working with Max since, well, 3D Studio DOS times. So yeah, been around for a while. And this year is or the last couple of years really have been very exciting when we look into modeling and asset building tools inside of 3ds Max. There's so much more to come, but just to give you an idea on who's using 3ds Max, I've prepared 2 different videos or a couple of slides here. Obviously, one of the main turfs of 3ds Max has always been design visualization, creating these kind of really photorealistic designs and visualization for architecture. We do have a big field of VFX and game cinematic workflows. So yeah, if you look at that, those scenes have all been created inside of 3ds Max with different renderers. Mainly, we see V-Ray being used here. And then obviously it branches into real-time workflows, e-commerce, AR, VR workflows, so everything that is, or requires 3D content preparation in order to send it over into Unreal or Unity. These kind of pipelines are fully embedded into 3ds Max and can be used in a very versatile way. And last but not least, AAA and indie game developers are using 3ds Max as well, mostly in conjunction when you look into character animation. Some use Motion Builder or Maya to have a character rigging pipeline going, and a lot of people are using the 3ds Max in-house tools as well, like the CAT and or the custom bones and Character Studio. So that's that. And with that kind of overview, we perceive 3ds Max as being kind of a Swiss Army knife, a jack of all trades, if you think about it. This is boosted by the fact that there's a huge variety of third-party tools available, both commercially as well as free scripts and tools. I don't know if you heard about or have been using Tyflow as an example, which greatly boosts the usability of procedural and parametric modeling and animation tools inside of 3ds Max. All right, and this is one slide that I just want to make you aware of. There are different ways to connect with us. So we do have a charter customer program in place, which enables selected customers to be part of our agile development teams, to directly connect with our developers, talk back and forth about certain features and how they are implemented. So that's definitely something that's interesting if you're going okay, I'm an industry veteran for rigging and I want to be part of the animation program or development program of 3ds Max. Please let us know, and we can try to hook you up there. Obviously, we are doing conferences. We're heading out for customer events, and we are on site with customers and studios to visit them and really listen to you, listen to your challenges and what you're trying to achieve, and bridging the gap communication-wise between our development teams. They are mainly located out of Montreal, Canada, but in fact they're all over the place. And we are, as a product specialist team, we're basically trying to funnel that kind of communication all the way through. And then there are different forums. There's the 3ds Max beta where everyone can register for. There's the ideas board. Everyone could suggest certain features, workflows, or sometimes these are even small adjustments to already existent modifiers. Other people can vote for those, upvote those ideas. And this has been a source for consideration for future and already implemented updates into 3ds Max. So that's great. And there's a community Discord as well. And for, I think, 2 or 3 years, we're having a public roadmap for Maya and 3ds Max. It's not getting down into the like really gritty details, but it gives you a general idea of where products are being headed. So if you have not heard about this, make sure it's, I think it's can be found, well, you can Google it, but it's also embedded in the area. So that's that. Now, I've been asked to give you that information at 12:30, so after my talk, well, we're going to finish at noon, but like half an hour later, we do have a focus group meeting happening here, and we're still looking for 1 or 2 customers for basically having a little bit of a loose conversation and interview about you know, upcoming events and how you perceive those. Lunch is going to be provided. If you feel, hey, that might be something for you, please let us know. Just stay in the room and connect with Jen in the back. Yeah, she's waving her hand. There you go. Amazing. All right. So I have like 3 categories here, really. One is I wanted to show you some ways to interact inside of 3ds Max. These have been updated greatly. Thinking about boosting your productivity, sometimes it's those small things that enable you to be a little bit, you know, faster and sharper around specific and existing workflows. Then there are modeling updates. After that, we're looking at a specific asset building tools. And in the end, I'm also going to tackle, you know, 2 or 3 things about material workflows, because that's part of the asset building pipeline anyways. So hopefully that makes sense for all of you. All right, so some of those tools have been implemented like in the last version of 3ds Max. Some have been just recently implemented, but this is a neat little implementation that we added. It's a presentation mode. It's basically a floating viewport that you can expand to your secondary or your primary monitor without the clutter of the user interface. It can be used to either work directly from that, or if you're working, you know, with a customer or an art director, this is a nice way of also doing your zooms without the user interface of 3ds Max, and you can really get down into the details and have that in a nice, you know, what you see is what you get PBR workflow or viewport happening, and still be able to work inside of 3ds Max in parallel. So that's something that we've been adding. What's nice about this, as I guess an addendum, is also a per view filtering mode. Instead of 3ds Max, usually what you would have in order to, you know, disable or hide cameras or shapes or details about your rig, you would hide those and they would vanish from all of your viewports. So this is now a per view filtering, which is presettable. So you can create your own presets and say, okay, this is like for my presentation mode with all the clutter of your gizmos and your dummies and your helper objects, or you want to have a modeling workflow where you hide a couple of stuff as well, and you can just disable and enable those kind of presets per viewport, per camera, per perspective view, and so on. Cool, and then that's my last usability tip. Working pivots have been something that we've been trying to tackle in the past, and we did some updates to that in the past, but it never really worked out. Now working pivots have been kind of fully overhauled, and it's very fast to work with those and kind of non-destructive. So you can easily pick and place your working pivots, align those based on your faces, your edges, your normals, and you can even use those working pivots in order to create custom grids to, you know, start shaping up new geometry or shapes from that. And last but not least, you can use the working pivots in order to create point helpers. So this is becoming something that you can use, for example, for creating your rigs fairly easily, like selecting edge loops or the center of a face. You create a working pivot there. Align that quickly based on that face, and then you create, let's say, a new point helper, and you use that for your rig right here. There's another example where we use edge loops in order to create these kind of point helpers to drive those for creating custom rig for hands and fingers. You get the idea, right? So it's once again, it's a versatile tool, can be used for rigging, can be used for modeling, and it's well integrated into your day-to-day workflow inside of 3ds Max. All right, now we're coming to one of my favorite tools and additions to 3ds Max, and that's the Smart Extrude. Anyone has heard or seen what that does? Heard about this? Not really? So this is, for me, it's a transformational workflow, really. You just hold on your Shift key and you do transforms like movement, positions, scaling, and you quickly are able to cut holes, to create bridges, to do insets and so on without the cumbersome workflow to go into Retopology and all those different tools. It's just, you work literally like that. You're shaping up your models. And this is a greatly overhauled workflow. Like in the last 1.5 years, we've been adding new features and new capabilities to that tool as well. And that's like, yeah, for me, it is kind of revolutionary. I don't know if you can feel the pain of using traditional tools versus this. This is really flowing and well integrated as well. I have 2 more videos that I wanted to show you with this that make it a little bit more apparent what the cutting hole feature means. Yeah, let's have a look here. So I'm doing a little bit of cuttings or cuts here, selecting my segments and just moving things out of the way to create these kind of holes. And as this can be used on your modifier, so it can be used on an Retopology modifier inside of the stack, this is becoming a kind of non-destructive workflow once again, right? So you just place these kind of modeling steps into specific modifiers, and you can enable and disable those to go through different iterations fairly quickly. Here we see that you can even cut holes through different segmentations, so you just move that all of the way, and it creates the faces for you in the right way. So, yeah. So this tool is called Smart Extrude. It is from polygon modeling. We added a kind of a Smart Extrude as well for the shapes. So if you're using splines and well 2D splines, 2D shapes, you can hold down Shift key once again to do this kind of extractions. It works with segments as well as with vertices, so you can just hold down Shift and you can start sketching out new shapes here. It's those small things that are really making a difference here. Here we're using the working grid based on the working pivot that I showed you earlier to quickly create a couple of shapes here. This could be a source for an inset or a Boolean operation later on. So that's all about the Smart Extrude and the Spline Extrude workflows. I could probably go on with all the modeling modifiers that we've been adding and redoing inside of 3ds Max over the last 1.5 to 2 years. These are a couple of examples here, like the chamfer modifier has been basically redone, re-implemented in like 2 years ago, and then every iteration, every point update of 3ds Max, the chamfer got better and better and better. Now it's part of the Retopology base mesh as well as the Retopology modifier. We have presets for chamfering. We have different chamfering methods. It allows you to maintain your UVs. So if you wanted to detail up a model later on with doing a little bit of chamfer, and you already would have done your UVs, you don't have to redo them all over again. So this is going to be maintained. Yeah, and there are different ways to drive your chamfer as well. There's a specific chamfer modifier, so you could use smoothing groups or dependencies, different selection sets in order to have more like a parametric workflow when it's about to detail up your model. This is a video I want to show you quickly. This is focusing down here on the symmetry and slice modifiers. A lot of these modifiers, by the way, when we redo those, they're getting we try to make them multi-threadable, so they're going to be faster with those calculations than they used to be. This is the slice modifier, which now has radial functions. It has a good non-destructive capping workflow. There's a new triangulation added into 3ds Max 24. So all of that is just way more potent to work with more complex geometry. And this is the symmetry modifier, which again has different axes that you can activate, deactivate at any time. You can use radial functions for your symmetry, and you can even control the symmetry axis based on an external point helper. So you could rig up a more complex scene to do this as well. I'm going to pause this video briefly here, if I can, because this is branching into basically what I already have put into the asset building pipeline. This is about retopo workflows. There's a retopo modifier inside of 3ds Max that allows you to fully automatically do a new retopology for your models. So as you can see, this is a triangulated mesh, and we want to create quads out of that. The retopo modifier does allow you to do exactly that. There are three different methods or algorithms in the retopo workflow. So depending on if you're using a CAD model or like hard surface geometry or organic retopo workflows, you might want to choose different retopo algorithms for this. As it is, as you can see here, a modifier, it greatly once again works with the modifier stack. So you could slice up your model before, do a little bit of optimization in order to scale down the overall geometry count, and then create the retopo, and then use the symmetry modifier on top of that to mirror off the half of the shape to the other side. I have a few more examples about this. So as you can see here, this can be a great workflow to get you started with the use of LODs for your game assets, or even for rendering. There you go. So this is a very, I think it was like over 1 million polygons. We scaled that down to 27,000 polygons. Once again, you can use normal maps in order to, or displacement maps in order to retain the original details of the high resolution mesh. And also the baking to texture has been redone. What we've added recently to the retopo workflow is the ability to maintain data channels. So that would be vertex colors, that would be UVs. If you do retopo, previously you would have to redo your UVs, or you would lose your vertex colors. This is not the case anymore. So the quad-based mesh that we've retopoed right there, it still maintains the UVs as you've just seen. Cool. Yeah, this is another quick example here. High polygon on the left-hand side, kind of low. It's not super low res, but it's a lower resolution polygon retopoed dog on the right-hand side. And there you come from 35 million polygons down to 30K. And the fidelity is still quite there. We've still planned to do like further updates to allow you more control over how the edge flow is being created inside of your, like for organic models that you want to, like faces and so on, that you want to animate later on. Currently you don't have full control over that, but it's a great starting point. And obviously when we look at models like this, this could be a photo scan, for example, where you usually start off with triangulated data, but having a quantified mesh, a good polygon flow that allows you to then come in manually with polygon workflows, edit poly with a smart extrude and so on to really work that model with a nice and clean topology. Cool. Yeah, that's the retopo workflow. The next big thing that we've been adding is the array modifier. So I don't know if you have been using the array tool inside of 3ds Max before. The tool, it's in the name, it wasn't a modifier before and was very limited. So you wouldn't be able to, for example, animate any of the array distributions and so on. So the array modifier as it stands here is a parametric, non-destructive workflow. It comes into kind of procedural allows you to procedurally generate more complex objects altogether, or use it as a scattering tool inside of your scene. If I play this off, you hopefully get the idea. All of these things have different options in here to randomize not only your object's position and scale and rotation, but we can also randomize and distribute different material IDs. Everything is animatable. You can stack up different array modifiers on top of each other, and it still, keeps intact. And what's beautiful also is that, and I have another video on that, it also allows you to do different spline distribution methods. So you could use like a path, shape path to distribute your objects. You can scatter or use the array to scatter geometry on top of already existent surfaces. So if you have a landscape, you want to have plant different grasses, bushes, trees, and so on, you can do that. And obviously, as you can see here, there are different like Cs to quickly randomize your distribution there. And yeah, in theory, you could rig that up even to have external controls enabling you to go quickly through different randomization settings, so you don't have to go through the modifier settings all together. So here we have custom attributes that allow you to, crank up the number of poles that have been used, excuse me, and yeah, stacking up those chairs quickly. Here we have another. Hopefully I can pause this. Here we have another box placed here where it should not place objects. So if you wanted to create kind of a lane where people can walk, you can do these kind of setups quickly as well. All right. Here we go. Yeah, and that's the array spline distribution or surface distribution method. Everything is super customizable, very fast to use, animatable as well, as it is for any modifiers inside of 3ds Max. And if you combine that up with, different methods, like here we have the gradient appearing. We do have the projection on surfaces like that. So we do have a spline on top, and we project that down onto a surface. This is, fences is something, but think about creating stitches along like a car seat and so on. It's a very versatile tool to use all of that and to create these kind of effects quickly. Amazing. There's one more array distribution method that we've just been adding, and this is called the phyllotaxis method. It's basically a radial distribution method that is apparent, or that we can observe in nature mostly. So if we go to the phyllotaxis, there you go. So yeah, you have different distribution methods right there. We've also added new methods to distribute the material IDs based on the array modifier, and well, the teapots, right? But you can see there are different, like more natural and organic shapes that you can create quickly with this. Yeah, and we have a progressive rotation array as well. Once again, this is just to underline how versatile the tool can be used. This is the random material IDs for a different purpose. So combined with a face, you can animate the material IDs quickly. and do stuff like that. All right. Looking at the time, I think we're still good. I wanted to also show to you the Boolean workflows inside of 3ds Max. And, well, Booleans inside of any 3D tool. I think people are always a little bit skeptical because, well, it can introduce a couple of issues and problems. What we've done here, opposed to the integrations of Booleans in the past, and they're still there inside of 3ds Max, they usually have been a compound object that's basically getting rid of the modifier stack of sorts. The new Boolean integration is a modifier once again. So it keeps your modifier stack intact, but also right at your fingertips, which is very important. And it's way easier to control different operands that you have and operators that you have inside of your Boolean workflow, as you can see here. So you can really use that in a kind of productive workflow. Here's another small video provided by Eloy. This is using or showing a new use live reference method. So instead of kind of merging your operands into that modifier, you keep the original geometry intact, which is great. This is a little nifty shortcut here. You can quickly clone your operands by holding down the Shift key. Instead of doing that outside of the modifier, you can do it right in there. And this is the combination of the array tool that we've just been showing before and the Boolean operand operator again, the Boolean modifier. Yeah. Oh, and it works with those kind of open cuts as well. So if you wanted to use the split method to quickly create these kind of cuts and fractures, yeah, you can do that. There's always one more thing, but it is true for that as well. We introduced VDB meshing, so voxel-based Booleans, basically. It's in the same modifier. You basically just say, I want to have the OpenVDB method. Then you can define a different voxel sizes. And this is something like where eventually polygonal Booleans would fail voxel-sized or voxel-based Booleans. They will just do their thing because everything is kind of converted into a volume, and then they do their math and their magic, and they convert it back into a mesh afterwards. Here I have another example. Now, where this is becoming very, very interesting is if you use the OpenVDB to quickly sketch up different just concepts and ideas, and then use the power of the modifier stack and, for example, do a retopo modifier on top of that, right? The retopo that we've just seen before. And as you can see here, like self-collisions are no problem for the voxel-based Booleans, so you can quickly do that. And then we do the retopo on top, and we have a good topology outcome with this. And this is highly art directable, right? Because once again, it's in the modifier stack. You can anytime, in any point in time, you can come back down, or you can quickly sketch up these kind of models just to get a basic idea or concept. You can use that as a source to send that over into ZBrush and really get the details running in your sculpting software, and yeah. And start that off. And we have like nested layering and folders and all of that available inside of the Booleans as well. And that's my last Boolean plus array tip. What we've been adding or doing here, we've been using the Booleans with the VDB meshing and the array to quickly go through different iterations for creating these kind of gamified assets here. If you combine that up with let's say OSL shaders that have a little bit of logic to them, you can quickly get these kind of materials running as well. Yeah, and that's that. I believe we have the workflow for that specific scene in the help files as well. So if you wanted to recreate that, there's an actual tutorial covering this. All right, and well, last couple of slides, and I have to take a zip. I've been mentioning OSL before. I just want to make you aware, hey, yeah, there are over 130 different OSL maps shipping with 3ds Max. As it is an open shading language, you can bring in your own OSLs as well. You can make easy customizations to those OSLs, so you can dive into the code and make customizations from there. And this is, once again, this is very, like from an industry point of view, a very versatile tool. If you're working in design visualization or in VFX or in games, you can use OSLs to create these kind of, well, parametric materials. You can use the baking to texture to really bake it down. If you wanted to bring it over into a PBR workflow that is then fully compatible to, you know, to being displayed on your phone via Unity or Unreal and so on. So you can do that. It's not restricted to only materials. You can actually use OSL to also you know, make these kind of projections. You can have your scene lighting, your environment, your HDRI controls, all happening via OSL maps that we're shipping inside of 3ds Max. Yeah, so if you haven't touched on OSL at all, feel free to do so. It's fully supported with Arno, it's fully supported by V-Ray and different other renderers that are available for 3ds Max as well. Now for PBR, we have added a specific PBR material. If you're not interested in the full-blown physical material of 3ds Max because you're heading over into like an engine like Unity, make use of the PBR workflow. They are fully compatible also with the Substance, the Adobe Algorithmic Substances, and they don't have all the, you know, specific material details that are more relevant for the renderer, but something that you might be using for if you have predefined occlusions, like ambient occlusions, your normal maps, your roughness and meltness, and so on. This is a little tip I have for you, and this is about the PBR importer. Let's see if I can scroll back a little bit. It's a bit hidden. It's in the material editor utilities, and there it says import PBR material. What this allows you to do, opposed to this workflow where we've been manually assigning each material, like each texture to every material slot, the PBR importer takes the naming convention of your file name and it automatically applies it to the material. And this is true for a full folder of different PBRs. So you can import a folder, or you can just, you know, point it to a couple of textures there. And you can redefine, if you have a different naming convention that 3ds Max might not recognize, you can redefine that, and it builds up the PBR material for you, just like that. I'm not sure if I'm showing the different variants. Yeah, there you go. So you can import that. It's just one of those nifty little tools that, once again, speed up your workflow a little bit more, especially if you're working with PBR creation methods in outside of 3ds Max tools. This is my final slide for today, at least. And this is talking about the Slate Material Editor. And this is a very recent addition to 3ds Max. The Slate Material Editor has been now fully ported into a Qt-based user interface. It's much, much faster than it used to be. So especially if you have lots of objects or materials and shaders being displayed in the old Slate Material Editor, that would slow down the engine quite a bit. This is much faster to use. And as a nifty little bonus, we've been adding the ability to create compounds. So you can group shader trays into like simple nodes, and you can do that within compounds and like that. I have this video for you. So basically, you just select what you want to create or package up as a compound, and you have your inputs right at your fingertips. And also, this I think this is not apparent in the video, but if you wanted to create these kind of links, you don't have to actually point to the actual input. You can just point or hover over the text, so it's much faster to find the right inputs and just drag that up and do it from there. And this is now a compound in a compound. And I guess you get the idea, especially with OSL, where there are a lot of mathematical operands available now inside of 3ds Max. This makes a lot of sense because the shader tree can grow quite complex. And now with the compounds, it's a little bit more, I guess, usable if you have a material expert who's creating these kind of materials, and then you have someone else who wants to customize it. It's much easier to wrap your head around this, where some of that is packaged up and grouped up nicely. There we go. All right. The summary on what we've seen, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I haven't been showing, but I think that's under the theme of really boosting your efficiency with these kind of modeling tools. What we've seen, we've been talking about the presentation mode, the maximized viewport, the per viewport filtering. We've been looking at the working pivot to create your custom grids, to create point helpers for your rigs, and also to use working pivots, obviously, in your day-to-day modeling workflow, which then blends nicely into the smart extrude. If you just hold down the shift key and you create your bridges and your insets and your create your holes and your extrusions, the bevels out of that. It's a very nice addition to the overall 3ds Max workflow. The modifier enhancements, there's a whole list of stuff that has been happening. I showed you the slice and the chamfer and the symmetry modifiers. A lot of that stuff, by the way, has also received, and I think I mentioned it briefly, performance upgrades. For example, if you look at STL imports into 3ds Max and STL usage inside of 3ds Max 2024 is 1,000 times faster than the last release. I mean, that's an extreme example, right? But some of that is, there were just bottlenecks in the code or that we haven't been focusing on for a very long time. And a lot of that stuff is now being either revisited, re-implemented based on customer feedback, or redone from the ground up anyways. The Retopo workflow with the modifier and the array distribution to build up complex scenes or complex models. Once again, detail up a model. I don't know if you can see that, but around that screen there are little knobs all around here. This will be perfect for the array modifier to quickly add these kind of details like that. And then we have the Booleans, which also not only do like standard poly Booleans, but also the voxel-based, the OpenVDB Boolean. And it's a great addition, as it's a modifier, once again, to use that in combination with the array modifier. And last but not least, the OSL and PBR workflows, as well as the now Qt-based material editor with compounds. Who's using 3ds Max, by the way, in this room? Did I just overwhelm everyone and go, like, you, a couple of people, all right. The modifier stack, John is using it, okay. The modifier stack is Qt-based now as well in 24, and it's filterable. It's much faster to use. Usually, like a lot of these user interface areas of 3ds Max, they introduce a little bit of lag. Like if you first click on the modifier stack, it goes like half a second to load up, and these are areas where we focus on to improve. Now with the Qt-based modifier stack, that's solved as well. So things are happening, and I think that's it from me. Do you have any questions? Who thinks about staying here for lunch for the 12:30 focus group, if anyone? Maybe. You can still think about it. All right. I thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoy your last day at FMX, and tomorrow is the online day, I think. But all right. See you around. Thank you so much. Right.